two locals head down a dirt road to target shoot.
When the target shooters came down, they had smelt smoke and they saw a fire. Well, they noticed what, one of them thought was a mannequin burning. Of course, it was a couple days prior to Halloween, but upon closer inspection, they saw it was a human body. 98% of her body was burned. There was no form of ID or purse on the victim. And it was not possible at that time to put an identity to the body.
Etched in the mud by the entrance are a telling set of tire tracks.
With the investigators finding the tire tracks at the gate, it told them that, somebody had tried to exit that way and may not be familiar with this area.
Hoping for more clues, investigators send the body to a forensics lab for an autopsy.
They determined that her age was anywhere from late teens to early 20s. She was 5'4", she was fairly petite.
Believed to be white, possibly Hispanic, with the sandy blonde and reddish hair. She had bruising around her throat, which could be consistent with strangulation. There was a lack of carbon found in her lungs. It told investigators that she might have been killed somewhere else and brought to this location.
Technicians at the lab check the victim for signs of assault and find a semen sample.
Whoever did this had murdered this individual, went to the trouble of getting gasoline, pouring it on them, lighting a match, and leaving the person there. It's pure evil.
Several names came up of missing people in our area, and the investigators at that time were running these people down, putting eyes on them, being able to rule them out. It's frustrating because you kind of get your hopes up and they're dashed again.
As the police look for new leads, her pale purple sweater inspires a nickname, Lavender Doe.
I think the name Lavender Doe really helped the case stand out from all of the other thousands and thousands of Jane and John Does out there.
As the case gathers dust, police catch a break. The DNA profile from the semen sample collected at the crime scene gets a hit in CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System. The suspect's name is Joseph Wayne Burnett.
Joseph Burnett's occupation was painting oil wells. And Burnett was a local sex offender.
Mr. Burnett was living in Upshur County but had not registered there. So law enforcement began at that point to get an arrest warrant for failure to register.
When investigators interviewed Burnett, he tells them that obviously he was with Lavender Doe due to his semen being in her. But he advised that he did not kill her.
Unable to place Burnett at the crime scene, the investigation comes to a halt.
He caught a charge on a fail to comply as a sex offender, and he went away for 10 years.
With every lead a dead end, the case of Lavender Doe goes as cold as a winter wind whipping through the Texas pine woods.
July 19th of 2018, I was contacted by the Longview Police Department in reference to a missing female named Felicia Pearson, and the boyfriend listed was Joseph Wayne Burnett.
Joseph Burnett remains the prime suspect in Lavender Doe's murder. After serving his 10-year sentence, he's been a free man for over a year.
Felicia Pearson's mother reported her missing. She had been told by Joseph Burnett that Felicia had been with Mr. Burnett at a motel in Longview, and he left to go get cigarettes, and when he came back, she was gone.
Police arrest Burnett. He denies having any hand in the death of yet another female companion. But a month later, Burnett changes his tune.
He confesses to killing Felicia, and then he starts speaking with them about burning a female several years ago. I went into the interview room with the Longview detectives. Then we start going into Lavender Doe.
What happened?
I went around to the driver's side of my truck. I opened up my toolbox, and I got a rope out. And I grabbed the rope, and I put it around her neck, and I tightened it up.
Burnett is indicted on 2 counts of murder. But the mystery remains. Who is Lavender Doe?
I found a descendant in East Texas.
Her name was Valerie, and she lived only about 30 minutes from where Lavender Doe is found.
I thought to myself, this is it. We solved the case. We found Lavender's mother.
We arrived at Valerie's house. Valerie didn't have any idea of who it could be in her family.
While Valerie might not know Lavender Doe's identity, her DNA could provide the answer.
We found there were over 25 first cousins. As we were building down the family tree, we came upon Robin Novotny. She was the right age to be a parent of Lavender Doe's. She was married to a man named John Dodd. There wasn't a lot of stability in this family, and that sparked our interest.
There was also a younger woman, Dana Dodd. We could see that she was exactly the same age as what we believed Lavender Doe to be. And so we could see that her social security number hadn't been used. We didn't find any Facebook accounts, any Instagram accounts, anything like that. I'm at the coffee shop and pretty much all of the hairs on the back of my neck are just standing up because everything seems to fit.
We found Lavender Doe. We knew we found her. But we needed the DNA to confirm who she was.
I reached out to Lieutenant Hope and gave him all of the information that we had on Dana.
The mother was deceased, and John Dodd was a transient down in Jacksonville, Florida. I spoke to his daughter, Amanda. Amanda was a half-sister to Dana.
When Lieutenant Hope reached out to me, I looked at the picture. I lost it. I did. I started crying. I knew Lavender Doe was Dana.
Investigators still need to confirm that Dana and Lavender are one and the same. They send a DNA test to Amanda.
Lieutenant Hope, he said he got the results back and that Lavender Doe was Dana, that it was my sister. It was just like everything around me just stopped.
Joseph Burnett was charged with 2 homicides, one being Dana Dodd and the other being Felicia Pearson.
At long last, Burnett is hauled into court to face justice.
Joseph Burnett pled not guilty at his arraignment. Even though there was a confession, yes, we did go ahead and start working towards trial.
I wanted to go to court. I wanted to hear his story. I need to know why he did it. And then he took a plea agreement.
Burnett is sentenced to 50 years in each case. For the families, it is small comfort for their loss.
He's eligible for parole. Once he comes up for that, I plan to be there every step of the way, no matter what. How old I am, I'm gonna be there. I want him to be there forever.
Earl Black returns home from work. Attached to the residence is a family-owned bookstore run by his wife, Sherry.
My wife, Sherry, her car was in her parking place, so I figured she's home. I walked in the shop and hollered, "Sherry," and she didn't appear. There's room across the back. This door was shut at that time, and I could see blood right above me. So I opened the door, and that's when I found her.
Earl's wife, Sherry, lays prone on the floor. She's not breathing.
She had a pair of scissors sticking out of her belly. I'll never forget it. I mean, how do you forget finding someone you love like that?
I was participating in some tactical training, and my phone rang. I was a lieutenant at the time, which puts me in charge of scene oversight. I went into the bookstore. As you walk in, it's a little bit of a labyrinth, books everywhere. I was directed towards the back, and our murder victim was on the ground and clearly deceased. It was a horrific sight to see. She died violently, and at whose hands, we don't know yet. We knew instantly that this was a homicide.
As crime scene investigators continue processing the scene for evidence, police develop a theory about what happened to Sherry and discover the killer may have left multiple clues behind.
What became evident is clearly there was a fight in this back room. With all of this blood, we have to assume that maybe this murderer's blood is going to be there also. We also were able to locate a partial fingerprint and a palm print. We felt elated because, as we know, just like DNA, fingerprints are specific to one particular individual. Palm prints are the same.
Police collect the fingerprints and blood samples and send them off for analysis. Results from the blood and fingerprints collected from the scene come back, offering new clues about the suspect's identity.
When I found out that we had suspect DNA, we ran it into CODIS, which is a database of criminal offender DNA, and we were informed that there was no match for DNA in that database. As far as the fingerprints and the palm print, we didn't get any hits. I was disappointed.
Leads dry up like the sun-cracked surface of the city's famous Salt Lake. And the case of the bookstore bibliophile goes cold.
The case was transferred over to the Unified Police Department. I had been involved in assisting South Salt Lake in this investigation. Now it's exclusively over at Unified Police Department. I would be assigned as the lead investigator to this case. And I decided I wanted to start fresh. In these types of cases, you really have to try to think of anything and try everything that you possibly can. And on occasion, you might turn over that little stone that all of a sudden produces something.
As Detective Pender searches for strategies to help find Sherry's killer, he comes across a new technology that may hold the key.
I was familiar with genealogy because my mother used to do that to make a little extra money for the family. But I hadn't even heard of anything called investigative genetic genealogy.
We know that there are multiple different databases. People will submit their DNA to determine their genealogy, their familial history. And if we can find through our suspect DNA who this person may be related to, then there's a good chance that we can trace back to our suspect.
I got a call from the genealogist who said, we have a match to an individual who we believe is closely related to your perpetrator. The family were located in Sacramento, California. I knew I needed to get out there and interview him. I actually brought a photograph of Sherry and Earl Black to this home. As we were talking, I asked the adult son if maybe in high school he would have had some type of intimate relationship. He said, I did. And she had indicated to me that I had fathered a child. He received some paperwork signing off custody. That paperwork was actually out of Utah. We were able to actually identify that his name is Adam Antonio Spencer Durborough. He had an extensive record in his juvenile criminal history of violence. As far as his adult criminal history, Adam was charged with shoplifting. That's the only thing he has on his adult criminal history. He would have been 19 years of age when Sherry was murdered. And now he was living in the Orem area, 30 miles south of Salt Lake County. The following day, we drove down to Orem and held surveillance on this residence for a number of days to kind of get his routine down. One of the investigators happened to see a sack from a fast food restaurant inside of his vehicle and ultimately saw Adam dispose of this at his residence in the waste container outside. We took the trash and I informed our state crime lab. They said, great, bring it down to our office. So I went home for the night, went to bed. About 2 or 3 in the morning, I actually got a text and my wife asked, who's texting you at this time in the morning? And I said, it's the lab, it's a match. And I really became emotional at that point. I just laid there and kind of started thinking things through of where we go from here. We followed Adam to Walmart. 6 plainclothes investigators approached Adam. Adam was told he was under arrest. We immediately put him in my patrol vehicle. I'm thinking to myself, we've got to get him to the office. We got to get this interview going. As we're driving, he says, I know what you want to talk about, and if it's what I think you want to talk to me about, then I would want an attorney present. He lawyered up. However, we did have a warrant already prepared for his fingerprints, for his DNA, and for photographs. And I thought, after we take those items, do I just take him to jail and book him in? Or do I put him in the interview room and give it a chance?
Detective Pender rolls the dice. He places Adam Durborough in an interrogation room.
When you get over to the bookstore, is there something that, is there something that sets you off?
I think it was just her being kind, honestly. I saw myself as a terrible, terrible person.
I guess I'm trying to understand.
Why her?
Well, why? Yeah, why her? Why Sherry?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I thought that I was this horrible person growing up. I was young and stupid. I didn't control myself. It wasn't personal. It wasn't planned. It was spontaneous. I wish I could take it back.
I'm not 100% sure why Adam picked Sherry, other than the fact that I do believe Sherry was kind to Adam, and I think Adam had not had that in his life. And I also believe, based on her kindness, for whatever reason, that snapped Adam and unfortunately just brutally killed Sherry.
Sherry Black's family gathers at the courthouse for Adam Durborough's sentencing. The judge sentences Adam Durborough to life without the possibility of parole. Left-hand Canyon is emerging from its long slumber as spring loosens winter's icy grip. But beneath the canopy of pines, a discovery rocks Boulder County.
The Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. Two tourists in Left-Hand Canyon in Boulder County go for a little hike. They crossed a little stream and began to make their way back into the woods, away from the road. And what they found was the body of a naked woman.
The body was described as a white female, probably about 5 feet tall, and she was a heavy-set woman. We had no identification on the victim or no idea who she was, and her clothing had been taken away. The call to the sheriff's office came in to us at about 2 p.m. The investigators at the scene thought that she had been there no longer than 24 hours at most. There did not appear to be any sort of a sign of a struggle or other forced activity.
It appeared that there was some sort of consensual sexual encounter. It didn't look like the body had been dumped there. It was very clear that someone had tried to obscure the body by covering it with pine branches.
Pretty quickly, they realized that her throat had been slit. They observed the ligature marks around her neck as well.
While detectives try to determine how the victim got there and find some lead to her killer's identity, the medical examiner brings in the body for autopsy.
The forensic pathologist collected a rape kit, or a sexual assault evidence collection kit.
It was way in the early stages of DNA. DNA was not really something that was taken into consideration in 1987.
Fingerprinting the victim, however, gives detectives their first big break, a name from a minor misdemeanor offense.
The fingerprints that were taken from the body were matched through the system to Carol Joyce Murphy, a 27-year-old woman from Longmont.
Back in remote Left-Hand Canyon, investigators interview anyone in the surrounding area, looking for leads.
Officers found someone who was camping nearby who recalled seeing two people on a motorcycle show up at the campground. They were both wearing helmets, which kept her from being able to give us any sort of description as to who they were.
She was awoken by a motorcycle at what she thought was around 11:30 in the morning. The woman that described the motorcycle being predominantly black, but believed that there was some yellow color tint to it as well, although she couldn't remember exactly, but it was just information that she thought may be helpful to the investigation.
Investigators talked to her co-workers at a company in Longmont where she was a security guard.
That about 8:45 or 9 o'clock in the morning, one of her coworkers observed a gentleman pull up on a motorcycle, which he described as similar to a Honda Goldwing, which was a black motorcycle with very distinctive yellow features. Carol went out, got on that motorcycle, and left.
Coworkers indicated that the person had a helmet on the majority of the time.
That became a critical piece of information in the investigation.
Detectives had focused in on Curtis Murphy as the most recent husband. Curtis was ultimately eliminated as a suspect. Investigators moved on to Kevin Elmarr, the ex-husband of Carol Murphy.
Kevin Elmarr is also the father of Carol Murphy's two children, who are 10 and 8 years old.
I was teamed up with another detective, and the two of us were given the assignment to interview Kevin Elmarr.
The two detectives traveled to Kevin's home in Longmont, just a few minutes from Carol's apartment, and knock on the door.
Kevin said that he had last seen Carol Murphy that morning, earlier before her body was found. She was just getting off work on a night shift, but he drove past her on his way to turn in a job application.
Kevin Elmarr owned a yellow and black Goldwing motorcycle that fit the description of the motorcycle when Carol Murphy left on it, as well as the motorcycle in the area where Carol's body had been found.
The lieutenant asked us to bring Kevin into the Justice Center in Boulder for a more thorough interview.
You killed Carol? No. You know who did? No.
Kevin Elmarr said that he left Carol Murphy on his way to drop off the job application. We went to several grocery stores where we showed his picture to the staff. There's no corroboration that we could find.
It was pretty clear that Kevin Elmarr was the prime suspect. I think it became a question of how long was it going to take to find every piece of evidence that we needed in order to hold Kevin Elmarr accountable.
The investigation sputters, and the case of the young security guard mom grows colder than the snow-capped peaks of the towering Rockies.
I was assigned the Carol Murphy homicide investigation in December of 2004 as part of a cold caseload. I reassessed what evidence we had, really with an eye for, is there scientific advancement that would give us new leads and new direction?
DNA taken from Carol Murphy's body at the autopsy could now be the key to unlocking this 17-year murder mystery.
The DNA section of the CBI laboratory had 2 DNA profiles that were developed. We were able to attribute one definitively to Willie, who had disclosed he had had sexual relationship with Carol within the days leading up to her death. Who is this other profile?
Detectives have a hunch the other DNA belongs to their prime suspect, Kevin Elmarr, Carol's first husband and father of their now-grown 2 children.
We needed to get the DNA profile from Kevin Elmarr to compare to the forensic samples.
I obtained a court order to collect buccal swabs from Kevin Elmarr in August of 2006. A little over 19 years since Carol's murder. I was able to collect multiple buccal swabs from Kevin Elmarr. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation had been able to do a definitive match. I believe it was 99.999998% of the population could be excluded, which left Kevin as the only probable contributor in the world.
The arrest warrant was signed January 29th of 2007. Kevin Elmarr was arrested that same day.
August of 2009, Kevin Elmarr was convicted of first-degree murder after deliberation, and he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
In December of 2013, I received a phone call from the district attorney's office stating that the case had been overturned and that we would have to have another trial.
The Court of Appeals was saying that Mr. Elmarr should have had the opportunity to advance certain alternate suspects to the jury that had been precluded in the first trial.
The retrial went on for 2 weeks. I was unsure of what would happen.
Once you finish closing and the jury is excused to go back and deliberate, for me, there is a certain feeling of helplessness. Fortunately, in this case, we didn't have to wait that long. It was less than a day. I think it was maybe a matter of 4 or 5 hours.
On October 23rd, 2015, the jury returned a verdict of guilty in the Kevin Elmarr case to the charge of first-degree murder.
For murder in the first degree, there is only one sentence that a judge can impose, and that is life in the Department of Corrections. Justice was ultimately served in this case. It just was far too long in coming.
On May 13th, 2002, at about 7 in the evening, I received a radio call from dispatch concerning a man that was down and deceased at a hog farm to the west of Rappeljay. I didn't know what I was going into. I didn't know if it was going to be a crime scene. My arrival on scene was at about 7:20 in the evening. It was still light outside, although it was beginning to become twilight. There was a man down on the porch. I got out of my patrol car, scanning the area. As I got close to him, it was apparent to me that he was dead. There was a large blood trail flowing from his head, and I could see blood settling in his lower extremities. I didn't think that he had been down and deceased for a terribly long time. One of his feet was hooked into the screen door, and the front door to the house was open. I noticed that there were what appeared to be 3 spent .38 caliber shell casings on the ground near his head. I believed this incident to have been a homicide. As I entered the home, I was extremely concerned because I didn't know what I was going to find. I had my duty weapon out. I cleared the house quickly, scanning through the home. On the stove was a pan of hot dogs and beans cooking. My initial impression was that there was too much food in that pan for one person to eat. That indicated to me that possibly he was going to have some company. I came out of the residence and quickly checked several hog buildings. There was nobody in the area. Don and Cord Herzog arrived, and they owned the ranch and that residence. I learned that the man that was down and dead, his name was Daniel Levine. He was a hog farm employee, and he lived in that residence that he was laying in front of. After I had cleared the house and the hog pens that were near the home, I radioed in for help from other officers. Sherry Westbrook, who was the person who had made the original 911 call, returned to the crime scene. With her was a man named Richard Edwards. I spoke to Sherry, but she was extremely hyperventilating, and she was literally freaking out. I spoke with Richard, and I told him that I would get up with him the next day for interviews of both he and Sherry.
The next morning, Sergeant Clonch goes out to interview Sherry, the 911 caller, and her boyfriend Richard at the Herzog Hog Farm. They're employees who live in a company house.
Were you ever alone together at all?
I always was taking care of the baby pig.
Do you feel that Dan ever came on you sexually at all? Did he ever make a pass at you?
Not that I could tell.
Not that you could tell?
Yeah.
Okay.
I took her at her word.
Daniel Levine's autopsy is conducted in the nearby city of Billings, Montana.
The forensic examiner's report came back and stated that Levine had been killed by a single gunshot wound to the head. The shot had been fired from between 18 to 24 inches away from Levine's head. That would indicate that Levine had known the person who had shot him.
With resources stretched thin, in a county of 1,800 square miles, Sheriff Brophy requests support from the Montana Criminal Investigations Division. Veteran agent Len Knutson is assigned to the Stillwater team.
Knutson arrived on the 15th of May, I believe, and I was assigned to partner with him. I thought that was a very good idea.
Sergeant Clonch and his new partner go out to speak to Sherry, the 911 caller, and Richard, her boyfriend, a few weeks later.
On arriving there, we learned that Richard and Sherry had quit their jobs and left the area.
We were very concerned and frustrated. Are we missing something? Why are they leaving? Is it a legitimate reason or is it something else?
We were going to have to run them down, find their location.
After months of searching, and with the couple still missing, the case of the man of faith found dead on his porch cools like the Montana winds in a sudden snowstorm.
Down the road a few years, on July 10th of 2008, I spoke to a Missouri probation and parole officer about Richard Edwards. That Richard had transferred his residency to Texas. That kind of surprised me. Sherry Edwards appeared to still be living in the Licking, Missouri area. When I found out, I thought it's possible for us to go and re-interview Sherry again. Many people are victimized by their spouses. I thought that Sherry was probably totally intimidated by Richard and had been bullied and browbeaten.
April 21st of 2009, Woody and Agent Knutson made a second trip to Missouri to make contact with Sherry.
I didn't know how Sherry was going to react. All you can do in that situation is try. Sherry told us that she was an eyewitness to the killing of Daniel Levine by Richard Edwards. We had been able to obtain an arrest warrant for deliberate homicide. I needed to locate Richard Edwards.
"4 days after Sherry's interview, police get a surprising stroke of luck.
On April 27, 2009, he was stopped for speeding in Texas by a rookie Texas highway patrolman. The patrolman ran Richard Edwards' vital statistics through dispatch and learned that there was a valid arrest warrant in place for him. Richard Edwards was arrested at that point in time, and his reported comment to the patrolman was, "I thought this was over with." I called and notified the family. Alice Evangelista was elated, and she, if I recall correctly, she said, "I'm glad you got the son of a bitch." Richard Edwards was found guilty of deliberate homicide and guilty of tampering with physical evidence. He was sentenced to 110 years at Montana State Prison. I felt the sentencing was just.
No clear motive for the killing has ever been established, but a chilling explanation has come from Sherry Edwards.
Sherry stated that Richard had told her that he wanted to see what it was like to kill a man. That's foreign to me, and I don't understand it.
Richard Edwards just wanted to see what it was like to murder someone else and ended the life of an individual that just wanted to work and be left alone.
Aurora Emergency 911.
My name's Richard Johnson. I was just moving some stuff off my patio that a former friend had stored, and one of the boxes is smelly. It appears to be a female human body. I can see a bracelet. I can see long reddish or brown hair.
Dispatch sends the Aurora police to investigate.
The officers exit the car and approach the house. The only way it can be described is the odor of decaying flesh.
As the police investigate the scene, they find that a large plastic container wrapped in duct tape is emitting the foul odor.
It was a fairly heavy-duty rubber plastic box. The odd part of it was the amount of duct tape that was around it. So whoever taped it wanted to make sure it wasn't open. The officer who actually looked inside saw skeletal remains.
It was grotesque. The body was found scrunched up in a fetal position with her knees almost touching her chin.
Detectives interview Richard Johnson, the man who found the foul-smelling storage bin. Johnson claims that the storage bin belongs to an acquaintance named J.D. Harrington.
Richard said, I just stored it for him. He never touched J.D.'s stuff. It just sat there. And then 3 years later, when he's moving it, that's when the body was discovered.
Johnson also tells police that he thinks he recognizes the body in the box as a friend from the neighborhood.
Richard saw the hair first, reddish-brown hair, and he immediately thought it was Carolyn Jansen.
Carolyn Jansen was a roommate of J.D. Harrington. They both worked at the Waffle House in Aurora. They were both hurting for money, so they decided to rent an apartment together.
He told the police about how J.D. Harrington was saying, Carolyn took off with my rent money, Carolyn disappeared.
A DNA test confirms that the body is indeed Carolyn Jansen.
Carolyn suffered a fracture to the skull above the left eye. The cause of death was blunt force trauma, homicide.
While detectives are still unsure of homeowner Richard Johnson's involvement, they turn to the next logical suspect, J.D. Harrington, the supposed owner of the storage container.
JD, do you have any idea who's in that box?
No. Who would? I don't know. Like I said, my stuff has been there for years.
Forensic analysis reveals that fingerprints from both J.D. Harrington and Richard Johnson are on the bin.
J.D. denied having anything to do with Carolyn's death. He claimed that he stacked his boxes outside his home the day before moving day. The implication was that during that time, somebody, whoever was the killer, would have put the body in the plastic container. J.D. told police that in early February 2002, he last saw Carolyn in his apartment, and she just took off. He never saw her again.
The only problem with that is she left behind things that would be important to most people. Her purse, her Social Security card.
When they interview J.D.'s former girlfriend, she makes a shocking revelation.
She explained that after Carolyn Jansen went missing, he came to her house, broke down in tears.
I didn't expect it. But first thing he did was got down on his knees and started crying that he had just killed somebody.
Police interview J.D. Harrington yet again.
He admits that these are his plastic containers and that he had duct taped a few of them, but claimed not to know what was inside. And you ask, does it look like this tape had ever been removed and then reapplied? The answer is no. And that sets off some alarm bells. It just didn't make sense.
The investigation narrows its focus on J.D. Harrington.
We had no physical evidence at the time to connect J.D. Harrington to the crime scene other than the body being at the address and everybody saying, this is how this bin got here.
There's a big distinction between direct and circumstantial evidence.
I felt there was sufficient evidence to pursue prosecution. The former DA said it wasn't there.
I wasn't part of that prosecutor's office in 2006, but they just felt they didn't have enough to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt.
The case of the murdered mother thins like the air atop the majestic Rockies, and the case goes ice cold. Carolyn's case stays that way for another 2 years, until Detective Connor is assigned to work on cold cases full-time. Detective Connor keeps Carolyn's case file on his desk for 5 long years, until a call from newly appointed Deputy District Attorney John Kellner changes everything.
When John Kellner became the cold case DA, he actually called me at my office and wanted me to submit 5 of the best cold cases I had for prosecution.
Our goal with every single case was to take a look and try to solve it and bring it to closure. The Carolyn Jansen case, it was complicated. There were folks that said it cannot be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, so we had some work to do to bring this case forward.
I need physical evidence to connect J.D. Harrington to that body.
That duct tape, what I was concerned about is how old it was. It had been exposed to extreme heat, extreme cold in our Colorado weather, and that can degrade DNA. In the early 2000s, there was not touch DNA that was going to be, found on that duct tape or on the container. But now we're really dealing with a completely different technological time with new forensic science. But it is a big risk because, look, it could come back with nothing.
After months of painstaking work, the forensics team successfully extract DNA from the sticky adhesive portion of the duct tape and send it off for testing. 2 months later, the results come back.
J.D. Harrington could not be excluded. And this is important because when you add all of those pieces up together, you're talking about placing one circumstantial brick in the wall, one at a time. It just helped us feel confident to bring this case forward on J.D. Harrington and make him face these charges in court. J.D. Harrington was finally charged with the murder of Carolyn Jansen.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
J.D. Harrington was known as a guy who would get potentially violent if somebody messed with his money. The story that comes out of this is that maybe Carolyn had taken their rent money and used it for something, we don't know for what. But I suspect that could be the trigger that set him off, that caused him to kill her. The jury convicted J.D. Harrington as charged of second-degree murder for the killing of Carolyn Jansen. He was ultimately sentenced to 25 years in prison.
To me, it was just a feeling of satisfaction. It's like, gotcha, finally.
It's the Wednesday before Memorial Day weekend, and Freddie Farah, owner of the Grand Park Food Market, is busy ringing up his regular customers.
A young man entered the store. That young man asked for a price check, and as Mr. Farah was giving that response, the young man pulled out a firearm.
The suspect pointed it at Mr. Farah. Mr. Farah stepped to his right, kind of in front of the register. The suspect made a couple statements, like, give it up, or give me the money.
Mr. Farah instinctively reached up to move the firearm out of his face, and as he did, the young man shot one time and hit Mr. Farah
One bullet struck Mr. Farah in the head just above the right eye.
The man bolts out of Grand Park Food Market, empty-handed. 34-year-old Freddie Farah clings to life as an ambulance rushes him to nearby Methodist Hospital.
I fell to the ground, and they told me that he had been shot in the head. His heart was still beating, but they think he was brain dead. We stayed there until they finally pronounced him dead. He bought 2 grocery stores of his own. The very first one was a very small grocery store. And the second one was when his cousin died, who had a much larger grocery store. His uncle told him, "Why don't you come take over this grocery store?"
In 1972, Freddie buys the Grand Park Food Market.
Shortly after he bought that store, he told me, "I don't think I'm going to stay in this store very long." And I was wondering why he said that. There were long hours. Maybe he wanted to spend more time with the children. He was a very family-oriented man, but he never answered me why he didn't want to stay in that store for very long.
Jacksonville police arrive on scene at the Grand Park Food Market.
When the detectives entered the store, they noticed 3 items: a cake mix box, a frosting can, and a soda can on the counter near the register. But nothing was taken. Money wasn't taken.
Unsure who left these items on the counter and why, crime scene technicians bagged them as potential evidence. Desperate for leads, detectives double down on their canvass of the neighborhood around the Grand Park Food Market. Through word on the street, detectives learned there may have been a customer in the store at the time of the shooting.
Annette Bryant was 14 years old at the time. She lived in the neighborhood. She had gone up to the store to buy some items for her mother.
Detectives find Annette at her home.
Miss Bryant saw the tall, thin black male with a red shirt outside the store. And when she was inside the store, that same young man entered the store, putting the cake mix, cake frosting, and the soda can on the counter. She was able to tell the police that the young man pulled out a firearm and said something along the lines of, "This is a robbery," or "This is a stick-up." She said that Mr. Farah reached forward to move the gun, potentially protecting her, as the gun was pointing also in her direction. And when he did, the gun fired as the shooter shot the firearm.
Annette is the only eyewitness who sees the shooting. And she even sees the suspect place the cake mix, the frosting can, and the soda can on the counter prior to the shooting.
In the evidence technicians' attempt to lift prints off of the items left behind, they were able to achieve positive prints. They did do a search, and that search was only done on a local level.
This is before you're able to check stuff nationally. And if the suspect hadn't had an arrest record prior to the homicide occurring, he would have never been identified.
The case of the young father murdered in his own market goes ice cold.
Technology has grown immensely over the years, and we've got great equipment to identify suspects. When I looked at the Freddie Farah case, we just had fingerprints, and so we ran the fingerprints again. Ended up getting a report that the latent print from the frosting can and the cake mix box came back to a Johnny Miller.
I was exhilarated. It was amazing to me that here we are 43 years later, and we're getting ready to possibly solve a cold case.
I run Johnny Miller in our local databases. Back in 1974, he was a young male, late teens. All right, we got something. But then you also have to think, this could just be anybody who went over and picked up a can and put it back down on the counter prior to the suspect coming in. Our last known address for Johnny Miller is in New Orleans. Then that was a 5-year-old address. What if we went out there and he's not there? He's just this needle in a haystack. But there's only one way. Sergeant Jansen said, you gotta go. We ended up going into one of the precincts in the French Quarter and met up with a uniform officer. Once we showed him the picture, he ended up recognizing Johnny Miller. And he said, I'll look around for him.
Less than an hour later, Detective Radigan gets a phone call. The officer has found Johnny Miller.
He spoke with Mr. Miller just briefly. I told him I was a detective from Jacksonville and I was working an investigation. Johnny agreed to come speak with us.
I never been to this store.
Never been to that store?
I can remember. Don't put that I said, don't put nothing on me. I ain't never been to that store.
Okay. When I've got your fingerprints and you tell me that you were never there, then your denials are just as good as a confession.
Johnny Miller is arrested in New Orleans. The state approaches the Farah family with an idea, a plea deal with Johnny Miller. In exchange for time served, Miller would plead guilty to Freddie's murder and meet with the Farah family to answer their questions.
I did want to see him face to face, and I knew Bobby was going to ask questions, and I did want to hear his answers.
Johnny Miller takes the plea deal and agrees to meet with the Farah family in a restorative justice session.
The main goal of restorative justice is to bring the offender and victim or victim's family together so that the offender is held to account by explaining and apologizing for what he or she has done.
I asked him, was he angry with my dad? Did my dad upset him? He said that he found the gun and he was gonna take it into my dad's store to ask my dad what he should do with it. And he said something overcame him when he got into the store and he pulled the gun out of his tool bag. And he said that my dad saw the gun and lunged at the gun to protect the little girl. And when he did, the gun went off. He said he just turned around and ran out of the store.
Mr. Miller kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then I just told him, we forgive you.
Mrs. Farah just blew me away. Such a strong woman and such a forgiving woman. I was crying. I believe the state attorney was in there crying. We were just so humbled by her.
Freddie was the love of my life. I only lived with him, unfortunately, a very short time. So I don't know what would have happened in our later years.